It is freeing.
And there's no, I already got rid of the ping pong table, I already got rid of the couch that's downstairs, walls are patched.
Wow. You've been busy.
That's good.
Oh, 6 o'clock.
Is this it?
Chandler's going to come in.
I'm coming. Wait to see whoever else wants to come in. Thank you.
I forgot there was a second class going on.
Yeah. That's right. You know what? We made the mistake yesterday of talking a couple minutes past the 8 o'clock time and then
6 o'clock?
the 6 o'clock time.
Yeah.
So it was, we were recorded just kind of having conversation. So I want to make sure that right at 8 o'clock, we are starting.
It's
All right.
Yeah.
6:01.
Yeah.
So I'll do announcements and you can open us in prayer.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. All right. Hey, Pastor. Jacob, good to see you.
Do you want to hear me sign in? Could you get me to
Well, it is 6 o'clock. Welcome to another round of Rock Solid Faith. We're going to be taking a look at chapter 6, the covenants with man, God's covenants with man. And I want to, first of all, give a couple of announcements. First of all, it's going to be pizza with the pastors this Sunday. So if you're new or if you've only been a couple of times, and we invite all those people right after church to come and have a little pizza with the pastors, get a chance to get to know people. And so like I said, that's going to be right after church. Also want to make sure that you put on your calendars March 18th. That is going to be the time for Pastor Spencer, Dr. Michael Spencer, will become a bishop. So that's the bishopric, I guess is how it's pronounced. And that is going to be 7 p.m. at his tabernacle in Horseheads. So those are the only two announcements I have. And would you be so kind as to open us in prayer?
Absolutely. Lord, I thank you for your word. I thank you for the illumination that your word is going to show us here tonight. And I just pray that these wouldn't just be words from a book, but that these words would be able to speak right into us, Lord. And that there would be words we'd be able to easily retain, and that you would use Pastor Scott and I to deliver them with excellence in a way that each and every person under the sound of our voice can understand and then remember and apply to their lives, Lord, and to recognize that your covenant with us is unconditional, Lord. I thank you for your the power that your word has to speak into our lives. We give you all the glory, honor, and praise for it in your wonderful name. Amen.
Amen. So this is Pastor Seth as well. A question? Or? Sure. You can do that. Hi, guys. Glad to have everybody here tonight. So we're going to be talking tonight about covenants. And wanted to kind of talk about what that is. Amazing thing in today's world, most people don't respect covenants. Okay? So what is a covenant? And let's kind of take, a lot of people would like to call it a contract, and which is an agreement that's binding by law between two people. In the old days, a handshake was all you needed to create a binding contract. A man's word was his bond. That doesn't happen much today. And today's world, things are much different. People break contracts all the time, or they don't bother with it at all. Okay, and even some challenging things about the contract or the covenant of marriage is one that's very challenging to face as well. Okay, and a lot of people don't necessarily respect the covenant of the covenant of marriage. All right. In a Barna group found in the latest studies of born-again Christians who are not evangelical, were indistinguishable from the national average on the matter of divorce, with 33% having married and divorced at least once. Almost all born-again Christians, which include evangelicals, divorce figures about 32%, which is statistically identical to 33% among non-born-again adults. So I don't want to talk, I know that there's a whole lot more that we can take a look at with marriages and understanding, but the idea of going into a covenant and understanding that both sides in a covenant have to fulfill their obligations. And I think that's the hard part, okay? Oh, yes, well, this person has done their job, but the other person has fallen short on that. And realizing that if, and especially in marriage, okay, if both sides are not in this, okay, you can't have a covenant. You can't have a sustaining marriage. You can't have a one-person marriage, all right? You've got to have it from both sides. All right. So it's clear that a contract or covenant does not hold the power that it used to hold. And we're going to take a look at some of the traditional covenants and understanding that it was serious. Okay, it wasn't something that was just taken lightly. It was incredibly serious. All right. So it does not change the fact that a covenant with God still holds true to His word. And what we need to understand that these covenants are between God and man. We need to understand that when God sets a covenant, God cannot break His covenant. Okay? So generally when a covenant is broken with God, guess who's at fault? Okay? It's humans who have pulled away, who have not fulfilled what they were going to do. So we're going to take a look at some of those things. You want to take a look at the next part there?
So the first passage that proves that God still holds true to His word, it comes from Psalm 138, verse 2. In the New King James Version, it says, I will worship towards your holy temple and praise your name for your loving kindness and your truth, for you have magnified your word above all your name. So He magnifies His word above everything else, meaning that He holds true to His word no matter the circumstance. And further on in the teaching tonight, we're actually going to be going over 5 different covenants that God made with man, which is going to be the teaching for tonight, to really prove this verse to be true. So that means that God makes that when God makes a contract or a covenant with someone else, He is consistent with keeping it. And I think nowadays in the world, something that a lot of people don't understand until they're really in the thick of it is that a covenant requires both commitment and consistency. Something that Pastor Dennis says a lot, that I've heard him say a lot here and in services, is consistency is everything.
It's everything.
Consistency is everything, because it's really easy to start something, but to finish it and to finish it well is hard, because it's like finishing well is hard just because it's hard. Like it's something you realize once you're in the thick of it, that finishing well is hard.
Right.
Romans 3:3-4 says, for what if some did not believe? Will their unbelief make the faithfulness of God without effect? Certainly not. Indeed, let God be true, but every man a liar. So God will not lie or back out of any commitment that He has made. If God says it, it's true, and you can take it to the bank that He will fulfill His part of the covenant.
Okay. If it's not, then He's not God. All right? And then then He's a liar. He's going back on His word. He will not do that. All right? A covenant always costs something. There's always a cost to a covenant. When it comes to God, a covenant was always sealed with blood. Okay? Because there's life in the blood. And so when we take a look at Genesis 15, 9-11, He said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. And then he brought all these to him and cut them in 2 down the middle and placed either piece on the opposite sides. And as he did not cut the birds in 2, you have heard the term cutting covenant. And this is where it comes from. when an animal were to cut in two, the price of the blood of the seal of the contract, when those entering into the covenant would walk between the sides and agree into these terms. The covenant was costly. Most groups, when you made with it with another group or another, what am I trying to say? Not a groups of people, we're the tribe, okay? So you would go and you were hanging out in a certain area and another tribe would come by, right? The first thing that you would do is that you would have to come and make some decisions or something like that. Who's going to run the lands, how many animals, where are you going to be, and things like that. If you could come up with an agreement, then you would then have a sacrifice of animals, okay? And you would cut a covenant. And then you would then walk through, or like a figure eight through the animals. What that was to represent was that if I break the covenant, okay, if I break this, may I be like what these animals are doing, all right? So I'm taking a look and seeing these things filleted in half, okay? Then I expect that to happen to me, right? Generally what they also would do was then they would also cut covenant and actually cut a hand, okay? And then they would bond the blood together, be united. And there's a variety of different cultures that use that. It's interesting then, when then you come and then you see a new tribe coming up, the person would always raise their hands. And this is kind of interesting. As they raise their hands, this group then sees, and then they see the scar, okay? And they realize that that this person is under covenant, all right? So if I mess with him, I am also messing with the covenant of everybody that he's made covenant with, okay? So it's kind of interesting also that when Jesus raises his hands, okay, and he's making his covenant, all right, that not only that we make a covenant with him, but his blood is shed to cover us. So when you mess with us, you mess with him, okay? And that's the new covenant that we're going to get into next week, okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead, go from there.
So
I kind of went off a little
yeah.
bit here, but
I'll start off on point 4. Covenants have diverse conditions to them. So some covenants are unconditional, meaning that one participant of the covenant has to do nothing to receive and keeping the rights and benefits of the contract. So, but most covenants are conditional, meaning that both parties of the contract have a part to fulfill, and that if one person does not do their part, then there has been a breach of that contract. So, for example, let's say you apply for a loan to buy a car or a house, and you don't follow through to pay off your car or your house. The bank has permission to then take away your car or your house for not following through on your side of the contract. So that's basically what that means, is that there are conditions required for you to have access to something that you have been given to. And so the majority of covenants that God has made with man, there has been a responsibility of both sides keeping their word concerning the agreement to keep it going with those benefits.
so there's benefits to obeying a contract, and there are what was I trying to come up with? There are consequences for not obeying. All right, and you gave a great example of that. Okay, what's so awesome about God is that He has come after us to establish and reestablish covenants with His people. Okay, and when you take a look at the word Testament or Old Testament, all right, am I getting ahead of myself? Okay, no, maybe not. Okay, the word Testament actually means covenant. Okay, so when you take a look at it, the Old Testament means the old promises of God. Okay, and understanding that this is what He wants to do. I want to reveal myself. I want to show myself. I want to have a relationship with you. Okay, and understanding that those relationships require something from both parts, from both parties, and we'll take a look at each one of these as God continued to reveal Himself to the people. All right, taking a look at Genesis 9:12 through 15. God said, "This is a sign of the covenant which I am making between me and you. And every creature that is with you for a perpetual generations. I set my rainbow in a cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be that I will bring a cloud over the earth, and the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you, and every living creature of flesh. The waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. Right? In Genesis 17:21, my covenant will. Let's stick with this one first. So here the covenant, the one that he made with Noah, called the Noahic covenant, makes sense. Here, taking a look at that, the promise was he is never going to flood the earth again. Now we know that that is an unconditional covenant. Right? There's nothing that Noah had to do. Okay? He said, okay, I destroyed the earth. I'm never going to do that again. And my promise of the rainbow in the sky is a proof to that, to show that I'm never going to do that again. Okay? And there was nothing that Noah had to do on this side or that side of it. That's just an unconditional promise that God made. Right?
And no matter how much sin there was in the world, that God would still never flood the earth again, even though the reason he flooded the earth to begin with was because of how much sin there was in the
Right.
world. Yep.
Now, doesn't mean that he's not going to deal with sin. He's
No.
just not going to deal with it in a flood. And if you take a look, there's a whole lot coming up that he is going to show. And when you take a look in Revelations and the tribulation areas, that it's going to be quite challenging. But he will judge sin. And again, he's going to continue to do that. Right? In Genesis 17:21, it says, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you at a set time next year. And again, that's a promise that he made to Abraham. Because God does not lie, he keeps his covenant to completion. Deuteronomy 7:9. Therefore know that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God who keeps covenant and mercy for 1,000 generations for those who love him and keep his commandments. Go ahead.
So, let's see. So he's always striving to give man the ability to respond to the covenant. He loves us so much that he has even created new covenants to keep the heart of man. So an example of this is found in Hebrews 8, verses 6 through 12. But now he has obtained a more excellent ministry, inasmuch as he also mediator of a better covenant, which was established on better promises, which we're going to go into next week with the Messianic covenant. For if that first covenant has been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. Because finding fault with them, he says, behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my laws in their mind and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. None of them shall teach his neighbor, and none of his brother, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their lawless deeds I will remember no more. What are the covenants that have been cut out with man since the beginning of time to today? So before we go over the first covenant of man, to highlight verse 12. So before the Messianic covenant, which we're going to go into this next week, you used to have to bring a sacrifice once a year to atone for your sins. But now we can approach the presence of God at any time we want, and then God will remember our sins no more. So that's highlighting that passage for verse 12, being under that new covenant.
And again, with all of this and the sacrifice and the blood, the key here is to establish relationship. Mm-hmm. Okay? I will be their God and they will be my... I just, every time I hear that, it's like, it's the promise. I will be their God and they will be my people. We will have this relationship. Okay, and taking a look at here as we take a look, and I'm going to set it up with Adam, and I'm going to set it up with Noah, and I'm going to set it up with Abraham, and I'm going to set it up with David. Each one of those. The problem is that when he set them up, okay, these are a problem to establish relationship, and then we said, "Great God," and then we thumbed our nose at him, okay, or we turned away, or we fell short, okay. And he goes, now he could have said, you broke the covenant, it's done and over with. Okay, but he says, no. Okay, I want to continue to love these hard, stiff-necked people, these hard-hearted people. I'm gonna get to that place. So here, taking a look at it, that he establishes another covenant to try to draw the people back in, to try to constantly woo us back in. Okay, until he gives us the ultimate covenant. And then we're going to get into that. Yeah. So let's take a look at that first covenant. The first covenant was made with Adam, the first person. And realizing there's like three different aspects. Number one, there's a blessing or a promise. Two, there's a condition. It's either going to be unconditional or it's going to be conditional. And then there's going to be a consequence for breaking the covenant. Okay? So here, taking a look at it's sort of like raising your kids. If you were like saying, okay, hey, look, I want you to do well in school. Okay, so and what I did with our kids is like, look, if you get on honor roll, I will pay you $50 for every marking period you get on high honor roll. Okay, and if you get high honor roll, I will pay you $100. I consider your job school. That's part of your job. Okay? For some of them, I didn't have to worry. I never had to pay. For others, however, I'm shelling out $100 every marking period. Okay? But it was worth it. Okay? Now, I also took a look at it for some people, but now if you didn't achieve this, you didn't get the money. However, I also put in there, but if you go below a certain grade level, then there's no sports. So there's some other things in there. So you still had to maintain a certain level in there, okay? And we had that understanding. So if you didn't want to get the reward, fine. But understanding that there was also a place that you weren't going to be allowed to go. So those kind of covers. And for most of them, they were pretty motivated to do those things. Because even if they didn't think they could get the high honor roll or something like that, they still wanted to be in sports. So they kind of had to have a certain level that they maintained. Right? So let's take a look here at the God with Adam, the blessing or the promise. And here, Genesis 1:28. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and over every living thing that moves on the earth. You are in charge. That's the promise, okay? I want to bless them. And I want you to be put in charge of this. And be fruitful. Go make some babies. All right? And we at this church, they follow through on that pretty effectively. So, well done, sir. Well done. Okay. Next is the condition. Okay? How are we supposed to do that? Genesis 2:16 and 17. And the Lord commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat. I've given see the whole garden? All those trees, all those things, those are all good for you to eat, but the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for on that day you shall surely die. Okay? There was a condition. Okay? All of this is yours. All of this is a blessing for you, but this one is not for you. Consequences of breaking the covenant. Genesis 3:17 through 21. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you will eat it, and all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles I bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, and for dust you are, and dust you shall return. And Adam called his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all living things. Also for Adam and his wife, the God made tunics of skin and clothed them. So here we take a look at that. Surely you will die. That is part of the condition. You break it, you are going to die. And now taking a look at that, he didn't go back on his ways, but he still wanted to have relationship. So what did he do? Okay. Well, first of all, he had a tunic. Okay, a tunic of skins. Well, where do skins come from? It's not a hard part. What? Animals. Okay. And do the animals say, "Oh yeah, by the way, here, just have this. Here, have my sleeve." No, you have to kill the animal to take it. Okay. So the death of an animal. So even though that the animal was surely going to die, okay, the animal surely died and allowed Adam and Eve to survive for a while, okay, and it then covered their shame. So here's an outreach of here saying, I still want to have a relationship with you. Now you're no longer allowed in the garden, okay, and now you've given away your authority to Satan, okay, but I still want to have relationship with you. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take that and understanding that the wages of sin is death, but right now that death is going to be animals. And there's now a sacrifice of animals that are covering the sin of man. And so that's kind of where we see that there. God made tunics of skin. It was the blood of the first animals killed to cover man. Why? Because you're the most important. Okay? And I'm going to do everything I can to reestablish covenant with you. Now, he could have wiped them all out and started with an aardvark or some other type of animal, but he decided that he's going to stick with humans because why? Because he's made in his image. Okay? He breathed life into them, and they were made in the image of God. You are the most important of all his creation. All right? And that we need to know that. He didn't make junk. You weren't an accident. Okay? You were made in his image, and he loves you to whether he's willing to go and sacrifice other animals, sacrifice his creation, and later on, his own son. Okay? So, the covenant cost a life. Okay? The covenant cost a life. You want to take a look at the next covenant?
Yeah. So the second covenant we have here is the Noahic covenant. So the backstory on Noah is human wickedness fills the earth, and then God sends a flood, but he preserves Noah's family. And God, so when another thing too is whenever God brings judgment, he always brings a way out. So he gave everyone else the option to also go on the ark, but everyone else laughed at him and said, "Why are you building this big old boat on dry land?" Because Noah spent 100 years building this ark. So it looked stupid in the natural, but Noah knew the voice of God, and he obeyed the voice of God. And so Noah's family was saved from the flood because of this. And then this leads to the covenant that God makes after the flood, where this one is an unconditional covenant. So the last covenant, the Adamic covenant, was conditional because there were conditions. If you ate from this tree, then you would be brought death. Disobedience,
covenant, right?
Yep, disobedience equals death. So this one is unconditional though, because God said God showed them through a rainbow that he would never again destroy all life with a flood. Yes, there are flash floods now, but this global flood, actually, the crazy thing about it is that the water was about 22 feet higher than the highest point in the world, which is Mount Everest. So it really did cover the entire earth, the amount of water that there was. And so yes, he did cover the entire earth when he brought the flood. Regular cycles of seasons will continue. There's be stability of creation. The passage that brings forth this covenant is Genesis 8:20 through 22. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelt a soothing aroma. And then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease.
Okay. Couple of things there. When people say, "Oh, I'm just listening to my heart," Okay, I'm making a decision from my heart because my heart's telling me. And what does he say? I will. Although the imaginations of man's heart is evil from his youth. All right. So we need to take a look at that. If we're being led by our heart, you're being led astray. All right. We want to be led by the Spirit of God, and the Spirit of God is also confirmed in the Word of God. Okay. So here, take a look at now. If you have something in your heart and realize it, take a look at it, get it talked out, and compare it to the Word of God, and take a look and see, does this match up? If it is, then I think you're heading in the right direction. If you're just saying, oh man, I just feel that this is what I got to do, okay? Chances are, if you're going by that, your imagination and your thoughts and your ideas are like, oh, didn't really think about that. Oops, didn't consider that aspect.
There's that verse in Proverbs that Pastor Dennis shared last week in church where it says the heart is deceitful above all things.
Above all things.
Yep, above all things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and he knows about that. So
Yeah.
he's taking a look at that. All right. So the condition of the covenant is unconditional. The covenant that was established. The covenant. Okay, I would say it was unconditional. There was nothing that Noah had to do. Okay? God was saying, I am never going to do this again. Regardless of your sin, regardless of what other things. Now, there's still going to be judgments on the earth, and people were judged for their sin, but not in a worldwide flood. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that even though that there was a judgment to kind of reset, a hard reset, God always has a remnant. Okay? Mm-hmm. There is always a remnant so that he can kind of reboot, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Even though there's a major judgment that's going on, there's always, and you take a look at throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, that there's always a part. They're saying, okay, there's some people who've been disobedient, but I'm not going to judge the righteous with the unrighteous. Mm-hmm. I'm going to save the righteous. Okay? And being able to do that.
Always mercy. Yeah.
There's mercy, yeah. Okay, so here taking a look, now we're going to take a look at the Abrahamic covenant, okay? And that's a blessing and promise of a covenant. You want to read the Genesis part there?
Absolutely. Genesis 12, 1 through 4. Now the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse him who curses you, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot went with him.
I take a look at that and realizing that Abraham was basically the father of Israel, okay? And the father of that nation, and through him Jesus Christ is. And we need to understand that verse, and this is one that I take a look at, it says, I will curse him I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. When I take a look at Israel today, there are many people who go against Israel, okay? Whether physically or emotionally or verbally, okay? And they curse the land of Israel. You are running into a favored nation according to God. Okay? Doesn't mean that God is not going to judge the inappropriateness, but if you curse Israel, there is going to be a curse against you. Now, in regards to that also, that if you bless Israel, okay, I will bless those. So I'm taking a look at and seeing and taking a look at how can I continue to bless the nation of Israel, even though they're not a perfect nation. Okay? But this is a covenant that even though this was made to Abraham thousands of years ago, does God change? Mm-hmm. So his word is not going to change, okay? And this still applies to any nation that's out there. And you can kind of take a look at what's happening in the world today for the nations who are trying to rise up against Israel and what happens, okay? But those people who stand with Israel are blessed, okay? And I think that's pretty clear that we can say that, right? Hebrews 6, 13 through 18, when God made a promise to Abraham, is that he could swear on no one greater. He swore by himself, saying, surely blessing I will bless you, and multiply I will multiply you. So after he had patiently endured, and obtain the promise. For men indeed swear by the greater, and the oath of confirmation is from them at the end of all dispute. Thus God determining to show more abundantly to their heirs of promise the immutability of his counsel, confirmed by an oath, and that of two immutable things, which is the impossible for God to lie. We might have a strong consolation who have fled for refuge and lay hold the hope set before us. That's in the New King James. And that verse was, Hebrews 6. There's a lot in that, a whole lot of thickness here. So here, but basically taking a look at that God chooses to bless and to multiply. That was the promise, okay? And that they're immutable things. I had to look that up because I wasn't sure about what it meant to, but the word mutate or mutation means to change. But if it's immutable, means that it unchangeable. Okay? So when God says it, he's in. Okay? And it doesn't change. So we can count on that. All right? He will not lie. He cannot lie. Okay? Because that's a part of his nature.
The cost of the covenant?
Do we do condition?
Oh, we did not. So the condition of this covenant was unconditional, meaning that no matter what decisions Abraham made from this point on, farther on, that his offspring was going to be blessed, whether that was he himself that was going to be blessed or not, that his offspring was going to be blessed, that his sons and their sons would then be blessed.
Yeah. And I believe that he made this covenant with Abram at the time when he was 80 years old. And he had no kids. Okay? And I'm going to make you this incredible nation. And Abraham said, that's interesting. Okay? I don't have any kids. How is this going to happen? But the idea here, he said, okay. And what was happening is that he said, first of all, you got to leave your folks. You're going to leave this nation. You're going to go to a place. You're just going to go. And I'll show you when you get there. Okay? You're going to leave your family. You're going to leave your protection. Because remember, there's a variety of tribes all over the place. And if you're kind of a small area, you can easily be picked off. But I'm going to be with you. I want you to go in this area. And then I will bless you. And you will be a blessing to all the nations. Okay? So here, taking a look at. Now, what was interesting is that he made the promise of that. And then later on, he actually makes the covenant with Abraham. All right? So the conditions of the covenant is that it's unconditional. But the cost of the covenant is found in Genesis 15, 9, and 10. All right? It's the blood of animals. So he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram and a turtle dove and a young pigeon. And then brought all these to him and cut them in two down the middle and placed the pieces on the other side. And when he did it, but he didn't cut the birds in half. Okay? So here taking a look at that then what happened, and I followed the next verse down, and then what happened is that Adam kind of like rested and he kind of sat down as these things are opened up. And then what happened was a bowl of fire. Okay? It was called a brazier, I think is what it's called, and a torch, then went and floated through the offering. Okay? And Abraham saw that and observed that. That was God himself, and it was like the fire kind of floated, which is interesting because that reminded me later on of Moses seeing the fire in the bush that wasn't consumed. It was also when Moses was also the fire by night and the cloud by day. Okay? Here kind of showing you that his presence was there. So God's presence was there at the time. Okay? It wasn't humans walking through it. God walked through that. Okay? I am going to honor it, and I'm going to show you that. Okay? But there was a cost, and the cost was the animals at the time.
So the blood of man. So Genesis 17, 10 through 14, it says, "This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be made a sign of covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations, he who is born in your house or brought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
Okay, so here taking a look at it, that this is a way that Israel was set apart from all the other nations. Okay, and set apart means to be holy. Okay, to be holy, to be set apart. So it is in that blood, that willing to the sacrifice of the blood of the foreskin. Oh, just think about that. Doesn't sound. But anyways, here taking a look at then that everybody could be identified that you are the followers of God. Okay. So, and that's how he established it. Right? The next covenant that we're going to take a look at is the establishment with Moses. Yes, okay. Moses, called the Mosaic covenant. And here we're going to take a look at now a conditional covenant. That if this happens, then this will be a result. If this doesn't happen, then these are going to be the consequences. So blessings and curses. So the blessings of the covenant here, the covenant was established through the law, the 10 Commandments. And in Exodus 20, 1 through 14, there were civil, moral, and ceremonial laws and rules. Okay? Number 1, anybody know?
First commandment, Jeff?
Yeah, first the 10 Commandments.
That you honor God above everything else, that you're only one God.
Yep. Number 1, no other gods. Number 2, which is sort of like the same thing but a little different. I know, I'm trying to put them in order.
No idols.
There we go. No idols. So have no other God and have no idols. Okay? But I mean, an idol is sort of like praying to another God, all right? Third one, something also about God. 3 things about God. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Okay? So that means kind of speaking or communicating to God or an attribute of God that's not His. Okay? You're going to speak of something that's, or God's going to send fire down you. You're taking His name in vain. You're belittling it. You're not following through on who He is. Okay? And knowing who He is. So those are 3 things. Number 4. Kind of has to do with humans, but also with God, what God did, and then He expected humans to do it as well. On the 7th day.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that?
It was up there.
Honor the Sabbath. Yeah.
Honor the Sabbath. Okay, honor the Sabbath. Number 5. Now the rest of these, and so the way I remember is that the first 4 is how to love God. Okay, because when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. The first 4. And understanding that Jesus said this, but this is what God said way back here. Okay? This is how you can love me. All right? No other gods, no idols, don't take my name in vain, and observe my Sabbath. Rest. Take a day that you and I can just hang out. All right? So that's how you can love me, by taking a Sabbath, right? Number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is how to love humans, okay? How to love your neighbor. Actually, this is number 5. Honor mother and father, okay? 6, probably the heaviest one. It makes sense to how you love people. You can't do this. Don't murder, okay? Now, it's not. Some people think that it says don't kill. It's not kill. The actual word in Hebrew means to murder, to take an innocent life. Okay? Next one. After murder? Something to do with marriage. Adultery. Thou shalt not. Yes, commit adultery. After that? Yep. Lie and steal, those are 2 things there. Steal comes first. Okay? If you're going to honor somebody, you're going to care for them, you're going to respect not only them, but you're also going to respect that they have stuff. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask them to borrow it or something like that, but I'm not going to take it from them. I'm going to honor them. I'm going to love them by respecting their stuff. Okay? And then the next one, don't give false testimony. We're not going to lie. Okay? Especially to a false testimony would prove somebody. Two people can, if two people agree on a testimony in the court of law, that person can be found guilty. So if you're lying to send that person to jail or deeper punishment, that was not good. And then the last one,
Don't covet,
don't covet. What does covet mean?
wanting something, especially something that's not yours, it's not supposed to come to you.
Okay? And the thing of it is, it's not just, I mean, it's okay to want some things. All right? It's okay. I'd like a nice house, and I'm going to kind of work at that. All right? But the question here is that I'm not going to say, wow, Denise has got a great house there, and I want it really bad. As a matter of fact, that I'm going to try to maybe make it difficult for her so she has to give it up. Okay? And so cheat, steal, how I can do to swindle something to take advantage of her so I can get what she has.
Does it also tie back to the stuff with God and the idea that you should want things within this world more than you want your relationship with God?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, in Jesus' time, all right, when the rich young ruler, okay, came and said, I've done all these, I've followed all these rules, and said, well, it's like, I've honored God and I've never killed and honored my mother and father, no adultery or stealing or false testimony. And Jesus said, oh, well, you're sort of missing one little thing. Okay, you got a lot of money. All right, take that money, give it away to the poor, then come follow me. And he had to walk away because the money meant more to him than his relationship with God. Okay, and Jesus knew it and called him out on it. And what was happening with that is that Jesus let him go. Okay, he didn't say, oh, no, it's okay, you can hang on to your money and still follow me. No, okay? You committed, I see your heart, okay? And you're choosing money over relationship with me, all right? And he'll test us all on that, okay? He'll test us all on that covenant. Is stuff more important than me? Is your family more important than me? Okay? Is there anything more important than me? If it is, it's an idol. Okay? But also how we take a look at one another. Hey, I'm glad that she's getting a new place and taking a look at that. I'm happy. I see somebody else driving up in a cool car, and I go, wow, that's really cool. Can I go for a ride sometime? But I'm not going to go and steal it from them. Okay? I'll take a look at it and appreciate for them. Wow, God has truly blessed you in this aspect. I celebrate with you on the things that you've worked really hard. You deserve that big, long vacation. Good for you. Okay? Those are the types of things. So the law was a tutor. This covenant would help govern the people of God and teach them that they would be able to teach them that they would not be able to fill the law because no man is perfect. Even though he put out those laws, here's the standard, okay? This is how to live a perfect life, okay? And then everybody who shot at it missed the mark, okay? And there's some aspect you can probably take a look at, checking off a few of these. Oh yeah, I've made that mistake. I have fallen short. I've missed the mark. But that doesn't mean that this is the requirement, okay? This is the requirement. Why can God do that, even though he knows that we can't make it? Why would he do something like that? Is he a loving God? If he's a loving God, wouldn't he make it easier? It's quiet. You're the crickets.
God's got grace and mercy.
What's that? If he's got grace and mercy, then he just let us off.
Well, he doesn't necessarily let us off.
Can't let us off. Why?
We have free will, we have to come to him on our own.
Yeah. Who has the right to set the standard?
God.
Why? Because he's God. Okay? And he's holy. And this is the standard. I'm going to show you how you love me, and I'm telling you how to love your neighbor. This is non-negotiable. Okay? This is how it's done. Now, can you do it? No. but let me show you who can. Okay? And I want to show you who's someone who can live out the whole thing. Okay? And that's later on. Okay, as we take a look at it, as we try to develop a nation. But just because it's here, take a look at, but these are the goals. These are the takes a look at. People and humans are important, and we're going to honor them. God is important. They're not multi-gods out there, one God. And we're going to make sure that that's followed through on. Okay, now, in Galatians, it takes a look at the covenant. I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm going to sit it next to you in the next part here. Teach that they would not be able to fulfill it. In Galatians 3:23 and 25, but before faith came, we were kept under guard by the law, kept for the faith which would afterwards be revealed. Therefore, the law was our tutor to bring us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after faith has come, we no longer are under the tutor. Jesus fulfills the law completely, okay? And that as we take Jesus into our hearts, okay, then he fulfills the law for us, okay? So let's take a look at the condition of the covenant.
So this one is also conditional because it talks about how if you obey, then you'll be blessed for obeying. And then if you disobey, then you will be cursed. So with that too, it helps. This covenant helps reveal God's holiness, and it also helps reveal sin in our lives. It helps us become aware of any faults in our lives, to be able to strive, or to be able to approach God, and to be able to become more like God, and to become set apart, and to point us towards Christ. It's not to condemn us for what we've done, but it's to help point us towards Christ.
If you want to take a look at a couple of verses to take a look at this, take a look at Leviticus 26, the chapter 26, and take a look at the blessings for those who obey, okay? And those are verses 1 through 14. And there's blessing upon blessing if you obey, okay? If you listen to what I tell you, this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. And there's like 14 verses of blessing. They're awesome to take a look at, okay? And then it goes, however, okay, if you don't obey, verses 14 to 33, and actually goes on to almost 40, there's almost twice as many understandings here to saying, but if you don't obey, then this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. And there are many curses here. The understanding that he holds himself, and he will follow through on that. Okay? That's the thing. I will promise, I make your promises, and I will bless you. But if you disobey, guess what? It will come to you as well. You will receive those curses. All right? And I'm not going to bring it to a surprise. It's already written down, so you're not going to say, what? I didn't know. You did. Okay? This is the covenant that he shared with that. The law required many animal sacrifices to cover the sins of the people. Much blood was shed in the covenant. And when you take a look at what the priests were doing at that, they were basically butchers. And people were coming up every time that they had a sin offering or something like that. You had a sin, you had a problem with something, then you would bring an animal, they'd sacrifice it, you'd repent, there'd be a sin offering or a grain offering or a variety of these other offerings. And realizing that these were a time showing, I am sorry for it, I turn away from it. And what it would do, that the blood of animals would cover that sin until you did it again. Okay? And so it was a good covenant for the time to help establish a priority, establish a bar, so to speak. This is the bar, this is the goal. Okay? Other nations didn't have those things. They didn't have a bar. They didn't even acknowledge that humans were valuable. And that's why they were given child sacrifices and a variety of things, praying to a variety of gods and all the other nations around us. But God said, no, this is how we're going to treat God, and this is how we're going to treat each other. Non-negotiable. Right? And if you don't treat them that way, I will deal with you. Okay? Which is kind of a good thing. And he holds himself accountable to that. But if you treat them like I ask you, oh man, you're giving me an opportunity that I could just pour my blessings out. I pour them out on you. So read that over so you can take a look at those. All right? Let's finish up that last one, and then we'll
Yeah, the last covenant that we have in here is the covenant established with David. So the blessings of this covenant are talked about in 2 Samuel verses 10 through chapter 7 verses 10 through 16. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and I will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own and move no more. Nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them any more as previously, since the time that I commanded judges to be over my people Israel, and have caused you to rest from all your enemies. Also the Lord tells you that he will make you a house. When your days are fulfilled and your rest with your fathers, I will set up your seed after you, who will come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. This is talking about Jesus, by the way. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commits iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the blows of the sons of men. But my mercy shall not depart from him, as I took from Saul, who I removed from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be established forever before you. Your throne shall be established forever. So, the covenant of this condition, or the condition of this covenant is unconditional. Too many C words. So this one's unconditional, and the reason being is because no matter what decision David would make from here on out, that his lineage would end up producing the Son of God, being Jesus, from here on out. And so his lineage will continue, his throne will be established forever, his son will build the temple, which ends up happening. His son Solomon is the one who built the temple, and God will treat David's descendants as his own sons.
Even though he had to make corrections for them. There were a lot of them, and even Solomon himself.
Yeah.
You take a look at some of his writings and stuff like that, and having all these wives and concubines and stuff like that, and then writing Ecclesiastes and just a lot of in Ecclesiastes. You say basically it's all worthless. Okay, I've done all these types of things. I've acquired all this. I was the smartest guy in the world. Okay, I was the richest man in the world, and it means nothing without God. Mm-hmm. It means nothing. All right, and so here, taking a look at that, and then after Solomon, okay, had this major kingdom, and David had set up this kingdom. There was Saul, then there was David, and then there was Solomon. And then as he disobeyed God, right after that, the whole nation of Israel basically broke up and became a civil war. And they split apart, and they were never really reunited again, okay, because of that. So he does follow through on his covenants. He will hold the people accountable. If you do not love me, I'm going to deal with you. And I'm going to deal with you in a variety of ways, and you may not necessarily like it, okay? There was a student today in my classroom. I won't mention any names, but I had something set up, and I made somebody a leper. Okay, because I wanted them to experience what it was like all day walking around, and they had little, sores and spots, but they had to stay away. They had to keep away from everybody else, and then Jesus comes at the end and heals them. But I said, but you can't get near him. He said, well, I want to go hang out with him. I said, if you go hang out with a leper, you could come and receive these sores too. And then he went and hung out at him at recess, and I saw him do that and stuff like that. And he goes, well, I checked myself over, and I didn't have any spots. And I said, well, you didn't have the priest check you over. So I came over and said, and I already had the spots ready and put them on him, and then taped his hands shut so he couldn't move his hands and stuff like that. And he goes, oh, man, and then at the end of the day, and the tape is itching him and stuff like that, and he's really bothered with all this stuff, and he's like, he's got to be separated now too. And he goes, man, maybe I just should have listened to what you said. And it was like, perfect. All right, it was like that was to take a look at. He wants us to obey him. He wants us to listen to him, to trust in him, in the things that he has. Are there any questions today about the covenants? I know there's a lot, and it's kind of heavy and deep. Okay, any questions today? Go ahead. Just speak a little louder here so I can hear you.
I got a couple. I hope not treading into strange waters.
Well, if I can't answer it for you, I'll say I can't answer it.
Sure. A comment that, so when you were talking about the fire, both with Abraham and Moses and the pillar of fire,
Yeah.
something that just popped into my head because the covenant cost something. fire back then was costly. Even if you know how to make fire in a primitive setting, friction, having to have the right minerals, the right
Yep.
material to make it, and the right conditions, it's a real costly thing.
Yeah. And you had to be
fire on tap is
and you had to be diligent to hold it. I mean, you would take a look at people who would carry coals in their
Well, that's
turbans.
what I mean, like fire, like creating fire.
Right.
Was such a costly thing. It's a lot easier to hold on to hot coals than it is to create fire, even if you're capable of doing it.
Absolutely. So the
good.
diligent of being persistent with that, and that's what covenant is designed to do, is that we can't just, oh, I got it one day and I'll let the fire go out.
So the question I got for you.
Yep.
And I'm gonna preface this by saying I am in no way defending the wickedness of Iran and Hamas, and I am no way saying that God's judgment on them is not justified. But when the comments about Israel, you're talking about the nation state of Israel, like somebody like Benjamin Netanyahu or the Likud, just by virtue of being from Israel, I shouldn't be able to disagree with the Likud. I mean, like Jesus rebuked the Pharisees, and
Sure.
they were the high rulers of Judaism. So if someone in the Likud is doing wickedness,
Yeah.
shouldn't I be able to, and again, it's not like personally me, I'm gonna go over in the Kesnet and I'm gonna go and like create something in Israel. But if I disagree with someone who's wicked from Israel, a person,
Mm-hmm.
not God's people, I receive consequences for that. God's gonna go and frown upon me. For
How you
that?
want- you wanna answer that? You want-
Wickedness?
I'll let you answer it.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm taking a look at that as like
Because wickedness comes again, like the Pharisees.
my own parents. I'm supposed to honor my mother and father, right? Because it says it in the law, right? It says it in there. However, if they say, you know what, we're a little short on cash today, so because you're only 7, Scott, why don't you go over to the store, steal 3 gallons of milk and some bread so we can eat? Okay? And the question is, I need to honor my mother and father, right? I always do what they say. I only honor my mother and father to the point of sin. So if it comes to sin, Israel or anybody else, our own church leaders or whatever, okay? If it comes to a point that we honor God above man, God above a nation. So can we take a look and point out to the things of our own nation that's not right? Absolutely. Can we do the same thing? I don't think that's cursing Israel, okay? But saying, hey, let's hold them to the standard of let's love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength and love our neighbors ourselves. Do we have the right to protect? Absolutely. Are we going in there and intentionally, drawing some things and causing some things and then trying to make it look good by doing some other things? That's a very good question. We can get into a big political debate in there.
It's not about politics, it's about right, wrong, wickedness, and God's.
Absolutely. So the key here is that when we take a look at that we always have to have the standard of God to be our final